Welcome back for part 2 of my approach to understanding the Lydian Chromatic Concept of tonal organization. Last time we got together, we learned the 7 vertical scales derived from the Lydian Chromatic Rainbow. And in this lesson, we're going to work on learning how to use them. Now you already have the 7 vertical scales, but believe it or not, there's still 4 scales left to get together for the concept. The horizontal ones. Why horizontal? All of these 4 scales contain the interval of a natural fourth. Not very Lydian. They lend themselves to the blanket scale approach, aka playing horizontally, superimposing one scale over a sequence of chords. The first horizontal scale is the all-familiar major scale, so C major. Up next, C mixolydian, which is our natural color for playing over dominant 7th chords. And we drift between those two by flatting the 7. Next up, we have the Barry-Harris augmented 5th diminished 6 major scale. It's the major scale with an added chromatic tone between the 5th and the 6th. It becomes an octatonic scale. This particular scale is unique because when you do the arpeggiations from each of the intervals, you really only end up with 2 chord colors. You get inversions of C6, so you'll have your root 3rd, 5th, and then your natural 6th. Or you'll have diminished inversions from your 2, your 4, your +5 diminished 6th, and your major 7. So it's very musical, and it has its own sort of rise and fall, moving from one interval to the next. The last one of the horizontal scales is the bebop scale, which you can sort of slice a few different ways. The way I start to think of it is I have my root C, and then I've got my flat 3rd, my regular 3rd, my 4th, my sharp 4th, and my 5th. That's like a big chromatic row from the flat 3rd upwards. And I have a natural 6, flat 7, and then my octave. So keeping track of that all numerically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes again, octatonic. 9 makes the octave. So it's kind of cool. You can really string on a sentence with it. And then additionally, if you're playing over some changes, you need to land on a downbeat with this particular note, you can add in the 2nd. You can add in a major 7th as well. It presents all sorts of different chromatic opportunities. Lydian tonics and how to use the concept. Let's circle back to the idea of a Lydian tonic. It's where our sound collages will spring forth. The scales give us the what of the concept. We need the where, as in, where do we play this stuff? George Russell's Lydian Chromatic Concept of tonal organization shifts the traditional layout of the harmonized major scale and the number system. Instead of having the Ionian 1 as your 1 major 7, the whole system is moved up a 4th. And so the traditional 4 major 7 sharp 11 becomes the 1, or the tonic, or the center of our harmonic universe. And it's the place where we're going to be deploying all of these scales from, the Lydian tonic. We'll focus playing the 7 vertical scales from different Lydian tonics over major chords, minor chords, and dominant chords. They're sort of the building blocks of harmony. Let's start out with Lydian itself. When modally approaching the 1 major chord, your Lydian tonic is that 1 major chord. So if it's C major, we'll be doing C Lydian. approaching the 2/7 chord. Our Lydian tonic is the flat 7th of that chord. So our chord's going to be D7, and we're going to stick with C Lydian, C being the flat 7 of D7. So the same kind of lines in the same exact scale, I'm going to superimpose over this dominant tonality. Now sure, that sounds right. It sounds exactly like it should. It sounds like I'm playing Mixolydian lines. But when we start using the different vertical scales from this Lydian tonic, the flat 7th, we're really going to get into some cool stuff. Stay tuned. Lastly, when we're approaching the minor 6 chord, our Lydian tonic is the flat 3rd of that chord. So we're sticking with C, and we're playing over an A minor 6 chord. Playing over backing tracks is one of the most helpful way to start to hear how the different scale superimpositions interact. With this C major, D7, and A minor backing tracks that we've had on, you can hear how C Lydian clearly outlines the C Lydian, D Mixolydian, and then A Dorian colors that are naturally derived from the major scale. Lydian is our least dissonant starting point. Using George Russell's concept of tonal gravity, he refers to it as the most ingoing or closest to being resolved towards a tonic. With each rung of the Lydian chromatic rainbow that we climb, more complex, sophisticated, and outgoing sounds await us. Now, if you need a refresher on the 7 vertical scales of the Lydian chromatic concept, I do encourage you to watch my previous video on this stuff at this point, because I'm going to dive into some playing. I'm going to let a loop roll from C major to D7 to A minor to showcase how sticking with the one superimposed scale tonality changes the different tonalities of the usual environments that we find ourselves playing over. We're going in order from what we refer to as our most ingoing or consonant, like we did with Lydian, to our most outgoing or dissonant, and things that seem a little bit further off from being resolved. Try to keep track of what intrigues you and try to work it into your own playing. First up, we have Lydian augmented, which is like Lydian with a raised 5th. It gives us a nice sort of wide augmented major sound. And now the D7 happens. And it shifts to D Lydian dominant. Because of our superimposition. And then over A, it takes what was normally Dorian and makes it melodic minor. Isn't this cool? I was so excited when I first dived into this first vertical scale superimposition moment, so I hope that you are too. Next up, we have C Lydian diminished, which is like Lydian with a flatted 3rd. And there's a big gap from that flat 3rd to the tritone. Otherwise, it's Lydian as usual. The chord quality we get for this one is a minor major 7 chord, which I often refer to as the detective episode chord. And so I'm going to be playing over that instead of a major 1. It is kind of a cool move to play over your regular major 1 and sort of modally superimpose the Lydian diminished and find your way back regular major or Lydian lines. Next up, we have C Lydian dominant. See what we've got going on here. We're taking that Lydian framework, changing it by one interval, and then we change the harmonic and also melodic opportunities available to us. Also, our one chord is dominant now. Over the dominant chord, it gives us a Mixolydian flat 6 vibe. And over the minor chord, it gives us like a Dorian flat 9. Which is certainly a more complex minor flavor. Progressively getting more outgoing, we're now on to the whole tone scale, which George Russell calls the auxiliary augmented scale. It's just whole steps, so for the first two chords, C7 and D7, we're kind of just going to be playing whole tone, connecting the two of them. So there's a few things you can latch onto with whole tone. You got your root, your 2, your 3, your flat 7, that's all feeling pretty good. And then you have these disruptors of your sharp 4 and sharp 5. On bass and guitar, I like to work in this 3-2 system. So I go 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. Now over the A minor, it is a very outgoing sound. We got a flat 9, we got a flat 3, we got a natural 4, and a 5 and a 6. So the flat 3 and the 4 and the 5 sort of make that feel as good as it can. Every now and then you'll just have to give them the dough, as I like to say. 2 more to go, and these are really starting to get into that outgoing territory. George Russell calls this one C auxiliary diminished, but I like to call it blues major, because that's kind of what it is. We start off with a blues scale with a 2 included. So 1, 2, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, then it ends Ionian. 6, 7, octave. And like the aforementioned Barry Harris diminished sixth, this is another octonic scale. It's 8 notes, 9 makes the octave, and then you get some unique combinations for the harmonizations that lurk within. With this particular scale, we get diminished from our 1, flat 3, flat 5, and natural 6th. And then we get inversions of the 5 chord to our tonic right now. So we have C to start here. From D, you've got an inversion of G7. You've got that from the 2, the 4, the 5, and the natural 7. And it's a really cool climb. It has a sort of almost like Beethoven, Mozart, classical tension and release vibe to it. For the blues major, for the 1 chord, we're going to play over another minor major 7 chord. And now over the D7. There's that sort of flat 9 flavor. I got my flat 3rd, my natural 3rd, and my 4th. It's awesome. Now here we're sort of getting an A minor 7 flat 5 vibe that also has a 13 and an augmented 5th. It's complex. The last stop on the vertical scale train, George Russell calls auxiliary diminished blues, which is really something we know already as whole half diminished. It's another octatonic situation that is intervallically built, going from half steps to whole steps. So just trying it on 1 string real quick. C down here. Half, whole, half, whole, half, whole, half, whole. I've always enjoyed this sort of ascending fingering. 1, shift 1, 3, 4 from the tritone. 1, shift 1, 3, 4. 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 Over our 1 chord, it gives us diminished. Over our 2 chord, it gives us a more outgoing version of Mixolydian flat 6. It has a flat 9, natural 9, flat 6, flat 7, and no root. Over the minor 6, we get a very complex minor flavor. This complex flavor has a flat 9, a flat 3, a natural 3, a sharp 11, and a 13. For half whole diminished, our 1 chord is going to be C diminished. So to access this sound, I like to think I've got 2 diminished networks, one from my root, C, and then one from my 5th, G. They're just kind of alternating. Very cool, and I do plan on making a diminished-centric video about different ways to apply it, the differences between half whole and whole half, as well as how minor 7 flat 5, aka half diminished, fits into the mix. That's a lot. Well, I agree. I think it's best to take it one vertical scale at a time and get to know how it sounds on its own before you start to plug it into the different loop or backing track environments. Get to know each one on its own individually, and you'll start to make the necessary micro associations to attach it to your existing understanding. Once you have the hang of Lydian tonics in C, work your way around the rest of the keys. After all that, you'll find adding Lydian chromatic flair to your progressions and melodies quite easy. Utilize these familiar musical devices when exploring these or really any new sounds. Triads, or your 1, 3, and 5. Chord tones, your 1, 3, 5, and 7. Pentatonics, or whatever version of them is available. Full 7 to 8 note scales. And lastly, inversions and different sequences of all the above that I just said. The superimposition stuff we looked at today is something that you can work into chord progressions. And I recommend taking simple progressions like 1, 5, 1, or 1, 4, 1, or 2, 5, 1. You get the gist. Things that have minor, major, and dominant chords for you to focus deploying the different Lydian tonics from them. Why any of this? For me, the concept expands my color palette. It's a step beyond what I knew of functional harmony. It's recontextualized and refracted my understanding of the harmonized modal universes of major, melodic minor, and harmonic minor. It's given me more to say in modal jamming environments and allowed me to be more expressive when I'm connecting chords. It's a familiar but fresh feeling creative frontier for me, and I clearly can't get enough of it. Creatively connecting chords is a big imperative of the concept. It's a jazz-leaning methodology conceived by jazz musicians for jazz musicians. Tonicization, or converging onto a tonic, is the name of the game. Whether it's modal jamming or closing in on 2-5-1s, the concept lets you broaden, diversify, and steer melodic and harmonic tension however you'd like. You know me, I adore jamming over a one-chord vamp. Using the concept to play in a way that George Russell describes as increasingly outgoing, you can imply a tonicization that can be tastefully resolved over a static chord groove. This has always been my approach to diminished, whole tone, and chromaticism in general, to expand the fabric of familiar musical environments. I hope you'll have fun with this and that it'll find a way into your playing. And please share the concept with all of your fellow musicians. The more people we can get on the level of vertical tonal gravity, the better. Happy practicing.